the Board of Education, School District number 40 at 6 p.m. on Monday, January 10th with the Coolidge Professional Development. We have a roll call, please.
Audrey Adamson, Justin Anderson, Chet DeSmet,
Here.
Kate Schaefer,
Here.
Maria S. Trigueros,
Here.
Andrew Wayert,
Here.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Here.
Oh, let me go ahead. Audrey Adamson.
Here. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. So I need a motion to approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of December 13th of 2021. Second. All in favor? Aye. I have those. We have no public comment
We do not.
for this meeting, okay? And we have a special education services update by Mrs. Sanders.
Hello.
Hello.
I am going to give you a brief update. I kind of do this once a year. I will give you a brief update on some of the changes, some of the things that we've been working on for forever, and what we're going to be moving toward in terms of areas of need and growth for our department as we move forward. Although if I really had to sum up changes in the last year, I have spent probably a good portion of my day and week and month and school year on COVID. That's just the reality of it, and working with the nurses who are all working very hard to count and trace and try to help everybody stay safe. So that is what is not on this presentation. What I wanted to review with you is kind of the focus that we have in our department of the three things we are always monitoring, always looking at. That's our compliant and the state indicators that get looked at every year by ISB to make sure that we are continuing to comply with state standards for our programming. We are continuing to work on resources for teachers and improving our instruction and programming for students in special education, as well as looking at social emotional learning supports, because that it was something that we were attending to prior to the pandemic. I think the pandemic has really highlighted the intense need that we have in our district for providing those services. So that's been the major area of focus. Every year I kind of give you our trend data. We are pretty consistent with the number of students in our school district who are identified with IEPs. That number fluctuates throughout the year, but this snapshot is taken December 1st every year. It's called child count. And we're at 13%. As of last year, the state average is 14%. So we are right there. The majority of kids in our district are in programs where they spend 80% or more of their day in general education. That is our goal. We have about 52% of our kids who spend the majority of their day in gen ed. That's our goal. It's called the least restrictive environment. The state average is 54%. So we don't actually meet that indicator in that particular area. There are about 16 indicators that get reviewed by the state. That is not one that we meet. If you meet 80% of them, you're considered to having met state standards for ISB, but that is not one that we have met, and nor have we ever met that since I've been in this position. We always strive to do it, but it all depends on who you have in your district and what their needs are. But it's a goal. We continue to look at overall trying to be least restrictive, but also then if kids need more supports, what are those areas, and adjust our programming based on the students that we have in our district. Sometimes we have a lot of kids move in with a certain disability area and we have to adjust our services, and then that will wane and something else will come up. So here are our overall, there are 13 eligibility categories in the state of Illinois for special education. We have the majority of our students are identified as learning disabled. So that's 44% of all kids in the district who have IEPs are identified as learning disabled. Speech and language is our next biggest area. That is 21%. That used to be 28%. Our speech and language pathologists have worked really hard over the past 5 years to tighten up their identification and not over-identify. The other eligibility categories are pretty close to where they should be and right where the state average is. Some of the strengths I think we have in our district are how we're able to use the CARES money or the ESSER money to add some teachers over the next 2 years to provide smaller class sizes and recovery services to students with disabilities. Of all of the students or the teachers hired with CARES money, 4 of them were special education teachers. Another strength that we've had is our numbers of students with emotional disabilities has leveled off a little bit. It was increasing quite a bit over the past 2 years, but it has leveled off and we've been able to stabilize those class sizes. So that's been a strength. We have probably doubled the amount of students that we have who will receive instructional level special education services through movements from this fall. We were able to shift one of our recovery teachers, an elementary one, to handle an instructional program. So for the first time ever, Logan has an instructional special education classroom, and they have embraced the program and embraced those students. So that's kind of been, I would say, a win for us. Some of the other things that I think probably are going well are the decrease in the amount of exclusionary discipline from the last year. And you might say, well, we were remote for quite a while, or the kids were here for a part day, and that is true. But that's also true for many, many, many other school districts in the state of Illinois. So we decreased that number, and we are no longer in the top 20% of exclusionary discipline. So that is a win. And we are not disproportionate in terms of how we discipline students of color. So that is also an improved statistics that we've had over the past year. We also have really included on a metric that looks at the number of preschoolers included in Gen Ed, and that we nearly doubled the amount of kids out in Gen Ed for preschool. And so that was an area of improved performance as well. This has been our big focus in terms of instruction, and that has been our curriculum for students with emotional disabilities. It's called AIM, Accept, Identify, Move, and we have been working very hard to do professional development, not only with those teachers, but with the paraeducators who work in those programs. Those paraeducators are also earning their registered behavior technician training, so they are better able to assess and help collect behavior data for students in those programs. We've had just some changes in some of the support services that we have for students with social emotional learning needs. As you know, we are looking at moving into A-Wing next year for Aspire, our Aspire program. But programmatically, we were able to dedicate one of our social workers to 3 days a week with those students that had never before had a counselor or a social worker assigned to them. And so she has been working 3 days a week upstairs, and that will continue next year as well when we move over. For the first time, we have one of our school psychologists assigned 1 day a week to provide, she's a BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst. She provides consultation and training and support to students with significant behavior challenges, significant autism and externalizing behavior. So we have 1 day a week for that as well. We have our therapy dog program. Don't ask me too many questions about that because in March, we'll be doing a program. And I'll give you an update on that program. But we have 2 dogs as of December. Cooper who, as you know, is at Wilson, and then Smokey, who is at Hamilton, and Jane Adams. So, so far so good on both of those jobs. We also began providing tier 1 instruction at the middle and high schools this year. It's a work in progress, but we've had some successes with some of the content that we have put out there for some of our secondary level students. And this was just a change. It hit the news from ISB, but there are 5 mental health days that ISB now allows for students. What that really means is it's considered an excused absence. Every child gets 5. They do not need a doctor's note for that. I think kids probably already were taking those days. They were just considered unexcused, but now they're not. Some of the needs we anticipate and I anticipate are some of the changes in our Illinois school code and law. So there's a new House Bill 219, and it is going to require some changes in terms of the district's response to students who are extremely physically aggressive at school. It puts parameters and sets goals for us in terms of the use of isolated timeout, and restraint, physical restraint. So we provide training every year to all staff who anticipate that they will ever need to utilize that. In most cases, they utilize it only in a circumstance where there's a huge safety concern that the student or someone else is going to get hurt. The goal for the State Board of Education is to reduce that to 0. And there will be benchmarks for that. We do not have isolated timeout in our district, so that is not a concern. We do not use that intervention. We do have some timeout areas as associated with our behavior programming for students who need a time away. But then also there are benchmarks to reduce that down as well. So it will require more training than we currently do, although we have been training staff in the use of crisis prevention intervention, as well as de-escalation strategies to, I believe now every school has received the de-escalation training. And some of them I think are going to be doing some follow-up trainings starting next month. So. And the last area of need is going to be reviewing our threat assessment team, revamping that team as required by the School Safety Drills Act, and then taking another look at our threat assessment procedures and forms. Those have changed, I would say, 2 or 3 times since I've been here the last 6 years. Our forms and our procedure are modeled after the Virginia Tech materials, and so they're pretty good. But there's always room for improvement, and I think a fresh set of eyes on that every once in a while is good. So we are going to be revamping those procedures and revamping that team just to make sure that we're continuing to do best practice in that area. Questions?
Their staff get trained in pieces.
Yes, we have had, I would say, every school received formal ACES training a couple years back. Every teacher and every school had ACES training. Some of our elementary schools have had multiple trainings, and some of our current counselors have done multiple trainings with their individual buildings in terms of I'll follow up ACES training. Basically trauma-informed training and some of the pieces that we have with our SEL tier 1 instruction have been identifying some trauma-informed practices and integrating those into their weekly lessons. And I would say that's kind of what the therapy drop program is about. That's what some of the restorative practices that we're trying to learn are about, as well as just overall the BCBA piece that we have as well. So all of these pretty intense services come out of a trauma-informed approach.
So you mentioned that we're no longer in the top 20% for the exclusionary. Do we have a goal of want to be even moving further in terms of reducing those
Well,
numbers?
the state sets the metric at citing you if you are in the top 20% in terms of your overall volume. And so, that is like where the line is. So we want to stay under that line. I can look at that 5-year trend and see it was increasing in terms of our volume for 4 years in a row. And we were able to dip back down last year, but not just dip back down in that area. We were able to, although we were never cited, dip back down in terms of, we want it to be proportionate to our demographic. And it very much is. The other area that gets looked at in terms of that whole piece of exclusion area is the number of expulsions that we have. So we did not have any expulsions last school year, nor did we have, I don't think, any the year before. The state looks at you if your district has 10 or more, then it gets looked at. And we've never had 10, at least since I've been here. We've used to range about 4 kids a year. But the high school has really worked at providing some alternatives to suspension and frankly, alternatives to expulsion, which has helped that number stay 0 as well for the last couple. And you guys know that because you're involved in some of those. So that's the other metric that gets looked at. Of course, you want that number always to be 0, but that's not realistic. Sometimes a day away might be helpful, but again, it's different for every kid.
Also, then about the 5 mental health days, is there a trigger then, I guess, if students have used some of those days, of what sort of outreach or something is happening to check in on that student who is utilizing? I think my daughter told me like after 2 or something.
It does
So I just
mention
wanted
that.
to- Okay.
Kind of says like after 2 or 3 of those, you would want the counselor to follow up with that student and that family to see if there's something going on that they're unaware of. That is the same response that we have for kids who have mental health hospitalizations. They say after that second one, you need to be following up to make sure that there's nothing going on at home that you can't support with if you're not aware of it at school. So I'm not aware of any students using that yet. Have they used it at the high school already? They would do that when they would call in to the attendance office. They would let them know, but that's not something that I would normally be aware of.
Yeah, and they just, I mean, in the past, they just say they're sick. So now
Yeah.
it'll just be a slightly different code, but
And if you're physically sick, that triggers a whole different set of questions right now. And so mental health, they would not. It would not, nor would it require doctor's note or assessment. So it's a little bit, I would say, easier for a family that way, if that's what it is, just to say that's what it is and no pressure.
I have a question. So when you talk about our timeout policy, we don't do isolation. So I think of that from my background, like I need to take a walk, like just I need to do something to remove myself from the situation, sit out in the hallway for a couple minutes. Is that what you're talking about when?
Right, so a timeout is, even the timeouts that kids get, even in our elementary ED program, there's no door, there's just an area they go to that's separate, and that is considered technically a timeout. And so the doors were removed, I believe, about 8 years ago. And so, but even now, sometimes we have kids that just will get up out of their seat and go in there just to get away from everybody on their own. But that's technically considered a timeout. And we have to report to the state every time someone in one of our schools or programs is restrained or goes into timeout. That data gets tracked by the state. So every time that happens, there's a form that gets filled out by the teacher, and then we report that to INSIST.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have Bowling High School Career Path Intermediate Center Welding and CNC update by Dr. Devane.
Yeah, that title's a mouthful, isn't it? I'm excited for for this presentation is we've been doing a lot of really cool work. And this presentation is really to be able to give you a snapshot into what we're doing and where we're going with it. I've got some of the team members who have been instrumental in helping with this. Susan Zellio from the Mullen Foundation is here. Teresa Sanders is here, our principal, and Todd Thompson is one of our teachers for advanced manufacturing, welding, woods, and engineering, and everything else in between, right? So we really want to end up going through, and the career pathways, the way we look at it from a secondary 612 perspective is really that we start with a discovery and exploration, then we move to how do we prepare them for what they want to do, and then finally, like once they've been prepared, they have to apply those skills. And you're going to see a lot of that as the presentation goes on. To start with, what we learned last year when we were doing a career survey of our students is that we were missing an education piece for the students to know what they wanted to do, really like as far as training, education, versus where they want to go. So I want to be a medical doctor. I don't want to go to college. I want to go and get a doctorate, but I want to do something where truthfully I wouldn't necessarily match up. So what we learned through that is that our students really need to be able to discover and learn. But beyond that too, they need to be able to plan. So we got together as a secondary team, and we now utilize Zello across grades 6 through 12. The nice part about Zello is it's regionally used. So you're going to hear more about work-based intermediary as we talk with the Mullen Foundation and Susan Zellio. But we have recently partnered with the Iowa side and attend their meetings, and they use Zello as well. That way we can get some shared services, what we're trying to target. For example, if we go through Zello, we pull student interest and we find out there's a huge criminal justice interest. We can pull something together. And what we've heard and what we've learned by working with the Iowa side is that a lot of times our businesses go, you hit us up for something, and then this district hits us up for something, and sometimes they don't gel, they don't know where it's necessarily going with it. But then this way we can get a concerted effort and pool more resources, a bigger bang for the buck. But it's Zello that not only educates and plans for the student, but also gives us feedback and continuous feedback. So we've started expanding that across grades 6 through 12 for our students. So students can end up taking an assessment. They can end up building a better knowledge, a better understanding of these different careers, what it takes, and then they can create portfolios. Now, if you start in 6th grade and as you grow and develop and you're continuing to use Zello, that only grows, develops, and expands. So you can continue to develop your portfolio on that. And then whether it's college or to a career, they can end up helping you with that and exploring where do you want to go, how do you want to go there, what are the options within there. We recently, through our training that we do with administrators, we've also opened up the course planning for high school too. So our scheduling can talk with Zello, and then the two can end up interacting. And so we're developing that place too. There's lessons built in there. So not only is it just ask them questions, but they can dive further. We are also going to be eventually launching an at-home parent component to it. So parents want to invest with their students and look deeper into their portfolio, work with them at home. We're going to be able to provide that to our families as well, which is really pretty exciting. It's also something that we do, like I said, regionally, so we can pull together resources.
Yeah, and regionally is really important just because I was a little ahead of us on Illinois versus in Illinois, because Iowa actually puts money towards this. They've got something called Future Ready, and they've been doing it for a while. Every school district in Scott County has a person who's dedicated to finding opportunities. They're called intermediaries. Opportunities for students to learn about the job itself, to better understand what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the nice thing about Zello helps them identify what they might be interested in. And then you can start working with them and start getting them to go to listen to various people who actually have done this job, who've gone through the schooling for it, who understands the good and the bad and the ugly, like I said before. But the other thing is I did want to mention, you mentioned a physician. And most kids, that's one of the top things, kids want to be a doctor. But the idea is to give them a lot of different options. So they aren't making the choice when they're sixth grade or eighth grade. But that way they understand they can be a CNA, they can be a physician's assistant, they can be a phlebotomist, which only takes between 6 to 10 week class. So they've got a lot of different choices. They can still stay in the healthcare, but maybe they don't have enough money or desire to go on for another 10 years to be a physician. So it gets them starting to think about these things in some type of realistic way. And so the nice thing is Zello starts them on this. And the idea of the intermediary center is that what we do is we're going to look for options and opportunities for the students to talk to people, to actually get out and job shadow once job shadowing is a possibility again, to do tours of companies, to understand what it means to actually be in that position and understand what it took to get to that position. Because a lot of students, for some reason, I understand this, think that they're going to decide what they're going to be and that's what they're going to be their whole life. We know that career paths don't work that way. A lot of times they're very, very interesting. So that's the nice thing about the intermediary center. Adding on to Zello is that what we'll do is we will look for opportunities for students. For instance, there was a career fair at Moline High School in November, and I found one of the things they identified was that students were really interested in midwife. And I was able to find a midwife who said yes, she would come, and she came. And that she was busy the whole time because it's very different, but also the idea is they're talking to someone who's actually doing this. That gets the students much more excited. And so that connection with businesses and for the students as well as the educator can make a big difference in planning. And that's the idea. You want them to plan. You don't want them to get out of high school and go, well, I'm going to go to college. Oops, I don't have enough money. You want them to think ahead, right? And the other thing is you want to think about it realistically because you don't want students to think they're going to go be a physician when they only have enough money to be a phlebotomist. All right. So there's a lot of different things, but we're conducting a pilot right now with Moline School District, Rock Island, and then with UTHS to start this intermediary center. With the idea, it takes a lot of time to get people a lot of times for that specific job connected with the students. And that's what our work will be. Schools are going to be talking to Zello. The nice thing is we've just added a person on, and the center is at Blackwell College. And Teresa Todd, who was taking care of the Zello for the Quad Cities tech region, is actually going to be helping us with the intermediary services. So she's very familiar with Zello, and it'll just flow very smoothly because of her experience. So we are collaborating, like Matt mentioned, with the Iowa schools because they've already got a lot of stuff going on. For instance, I was able to offer to Wilson and John Deere Manufacturing Day, which had been something that they created on the Iowa side. And before COVID, it had been something you go to, but they decided to do a little differently and they went to the schools. Wilson decided to have all their eighth graders go through it, whereas John Deere decided just to have their CTE classes go through it. So it can be very personalized depending what the instructors and what the school wants to do. That's the nice thing about it. It's not one size fits everybody because it just doesn't work that way. So we've started this. We're very excited to get Teresa on board. She just started last week, and we'll be talking actually tomorrow with Matt and his crew about what areas do we want to expand this? Where can we help? What can we do?
Yeah, and really have to give appreciation to this board and to Susan. This board, as a reminder, originally approved the MOU to try to move forward with this in a grant way to get this position going. Then later, after that MOU approval, and we knew the dollar cost that would be for this 2-year position, this board again approved this position. Now, we got really fortunate that one of the people who applied and was later hired was a local Zello expert, and it's going to be dedicated to supporting students moving forward. So it's
just such a great bang for the buck. But the other thing that I have to say is appreciation for Susan was, we've been in these meetings with the Iowa school before the intermediary even started. We've been learning, developing, making connections. A huge thank you to different people such as Mary Johnson at Pleasant Valley, who has given us so many resources and calendars and invited us to more meetings than our calendars could actually take. But, you know, we'll take it because it all just worked out so well.
Yeah.
So she just started just a couple days ago, and one of her first big meetings is tomorrow. We're going to map out all the schools. And I'm really, really excited because we've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, and the best thing is we've got a lot of different pilots that have happened in various places that show what best practices are, as well as we've got it in our backyard with Scott Community on all their schools. So we don't have to rebuild everything. We can start from where they're at and build onto it and make it, tailor it so that way it meets Molene's needs.
Excited. Thank you. Another part that we're working on, and Susan's been in some of these meetings too, we've been part of the 60-25 network. 60%
Okay, yeah, 60% of high schoolers will have some type of post-secondary credential by 2025. Yes, they're working on a different name of it because we're almost at 2025. But yeah, that's the idea of it. And happily enough, because we are 60 by 25 community now, which Matt was part of, we were able to get several grants. One of which is with the educators pathways, and the other one is we're still in the process of applying for, in conjunction with 60 by 25 and the Illinois Manufacturing Association, one for a manufacturing pathway also. And what that means is that would be recognized by ISBE as a credential that the student can take and say, hey, I got this credential. So that's pretty exciting.
It's super exciting. So being part of this work, we're getting grant dollars for manufacturing. We also have grant dollars towards that we were able to solidify towards our education pathway. And the neat part this year is that the National ASCE conference is in Chicago. And so we're able to solidify some of these grants so that we'll be able to send some of our educators to help influence the early enrollment program by going to the National ASCE conference, which is just huge. So, you know, the other part with some of this grant work that we're already ahead of the curve for Trista, Chris Moore, Tom Ryerson, and myself, we put ourselves into a dimly lit room and really knocked out a lot of administrative work on this. Susan's been involved in so many countless meetings as part of the 60 by 25 network, which helps us is that we are currently working on, and we have to do this in conjunction with Blackhawk College, but we're working on right now what's called a college and career pathway endorsement. This is fairly new. But what it means is if our students go through one of our college and career pathways and completes the complete 4-year pathway, they get an endorsement that goes directly on their high school diploma. That's endorsed by the state. It's very much like the seal of literacy in some regards. But you have to complete a 4-year sequence. Right now, we obviously have the 4 target areas of advanced manufacturing, education, welding, and engineering. Our thought was, let's get 2 done and then replicate the success. So we have all the components ready for advanced manufacturing and engineering. We were waiting on some course codes through Blackhawk, which we just recently received. So we're going to start the application process for this. And then once we're successful in that, replicating that success through all of it. Now, just because we have the college career pathway endorsement and it's in a 4-year sequence, doesn't mean that every student is necessarily going to get that endorsement. You could still go through, say, the advanced manufacturing, welding, or education without getting that. But if you do the rest of it, it hits all the other components to say that you went through a highly rigorous program. And what it looks like is this. This is the complete framework. And actually, luckily, this fall, I was able to meet the director of the organization for the state that does this, who, by the way, graduated from Moline. So it's really nice to end up having someone's cell phone in your back pocket. Everyone has to end up having an individualized plan. And we can do that, already do that in a lot of regards at Moline High School.
And then the other part too, with the professional learning, Todd Thompson has helped us with looking at this and what this means in the classroom. You have to end up having career exploration activities. You end up having so many hours of career development experience. And then also looking for team-based challenges. Right now, fortunately, in the engineering, we do have team-based challenges, and we talked about some additional challenges that we can end up infusing to be able to help with this portion. And then, just like how I had started the presentation to say, we really kind of look at three different areas, where we try to have them discover, then we prepare them, and then we really start getting into those advanced courses. The same way with the coursework, as you can see in the pink or red or orange area, kind of lays out what this looks like. And we naturally have our courses built in this regard for students to pop in, but if you choose the full 4-year course work, then you can end up developing this way. And then academic readiness, students have to be ready for non-remedial coursework in reading and math by high school graduation. This only really makes sense in that we know that reading or math, either ready for work or ready for college, you still have to have high reading and math skills. And quite frankly, as an English major, I think I'm saying this, but I've seen Mr. Thompson's CNC manuals, and it's way harder than the ones I read in college. So this is what a student would have to go through if they want the entire endorsement. We have components in place for 2 of the 4, and we're going to be applying for that soon. And we're going to be really excited to celebrate that as a district when we end up. All right, Todd Thompson joined me now with welding and engineering and advanced manufacturing update. And by the way, kudos to Todd. I can't tell you how many times I walk into his classroom, students don't even stare at the guy at the suit anymore. And every single time he's just been so passionate about helping grow this. It's really fun working with him.
Yeah, the industrial arts department in general, it's been on a steady incline here for the last couple of years. Starting, Dave and Dan McGuire had a first little meeting in his office about a possibility, and from there it just took off. We visited Galesburg High School about kind of something that they had going on, and then we decided to just go above and beyond, which was amazing in the CNC program. So currently we do have the Department of Labor approved apprenticeship through the CNC manufacturing program. And what that is, they take their intro to CNC. We can get into the pathways here on the next slide, but the intro to CNC is usually a junior level class. And as they complete that at the end of the year or the second semester, they get to go out and visit some companies, and then the companies actually get to kind of see them. They get to see what the companies are about, kind of both ways. And we put them through a whole interview process. We go through, they create resumes, they get, interview skills, everything that we can do to help them. It's kind of one of those things where they list their top 3 companies out of the ones that we're working with, and the companies kind of look at them and during the tour and maybe say, hey, this kid maybe seemed really interested in what we're doing with building. Can we have them? And we hope to make that perfect match. So that's the overall goal. It's worked out great. We're working with multiple companies throughout the Quad Cities and CNC. I don't know. But 7 companies throughout the Quad Cities. Most of them are in Iowa, but we do have some in Illinois, and we're continuing to grow. I know Miracle Tool and MA Ford have been great in the fact of not even just taking our juniors that are moving on to be in the apprenticeship, but hiring the seniors that have just taken the class, even the first level, and been like, not a problem. We like what you're doing. We're hiring them right now out of high school, $15 an hour. And we'll give them a 3-month kind of internship to see what they want to do after their summer. If they want to go back to school, they can, no problem. And if they want to stay here, we'd love to keep them. So that's exciting. The new Department of Labor agreement that we're starting with welding, this one could be huge, in my opinion. We get all the time people asking, do you have any welders? Do you have any welders? But this one, we already have a welding program established. The companies are established in the area for doing this. So it's not something brand new like the CNC, as we were the first ones. So I really believe that this one's going to grow probably to the numbers of the CNC already in the first year. I think we already have. I just talked to Dave Antonelli tonight about the John Deere wanting a couple of them, and he's like, "How many do you have?" I was like, "I think I have about 25," and he was like, "No way!" He was pretty excited about it. So I think we might be the biggest group already out of all the schools in the Quad Cities in our first year, just in the welding aspect of it. So that's going to be very exciting. Then the revamp of the entire welding room. Obviously, you guys know that you guys approved a lot of or all that stuff. So all the new welders, the advanced robotic welding. I don't even know if there's another school in the country that's going to have this thing. And the companies are excited because that's something that's not like production welding. You know, it's going to be something that's going to be a special kind of a special pathway for that person, and for them to get any kind of training in that in a high school environment, going to be probably not getting that anywhere else. We also have the virtual welding that gives automatic feedback, gives angles and different things like that without getting too technical, but it gives them instant feedback on what they're doing wrong to where they can test themselves at any time and take it right out to the booth and then try their skills. So they don't have to bring it up to me every time or the instructor and be like, what am I doing wrong? Or I don't have to watch them every time. They can get that feedback right away. So, and then let's see, Project Lead the Way. The Project Lead the Way classes, we have four classes: IED, POE, SIM, and CEA are the four classes that you take through your 4 years. And this has been growing and growing and growing ever since Mr. Carlo started this. And I think it was 2005, we had 22 students, and now we're over with 180 students enrolled. Plenty of kids getting internships right out of high school for engineering. And, you know, it's usually, I know we get to deal with, we're lucky in this aspect, we get to deal with probably about the top 10% of the academic students. So, I mean, it's kids that are really engaged and they like to be challenged. So we get to take them to some of those competitions that Mr. DeBay was talking about, and they do very well in all of their competitions. So, and you guys are, obviously you can go to any of these competitions that have, I know we have a fun one. It's the cardboard boat regatta. It's great. But we get to go and do that against, and we compete against a lot of the local schools. So it's fun.
The best is walking down the hallway when you guys do the
Oh,
regatta, like first
it is.
go trip.
Yeah.
Second, it's to hear the kids like talk about, you know, almost in an argument, that that's not gonna work. Your design is flawed, and like they're really passionate about it. It's like a real work environment.
It actually is. It's. Well, your daughter was. She took that class, and I mean, you have kids that they think they have the greatest boat in the world, and then you'll see this one design and it'll be perfect. The guy will float for 30 minutes, and then the other one will look great. Straight down.
Before we go to the next slide, just a couple additional things for the welding material. We consulted with people in the industry on what equipment that we needed to buy. I thought one really important piece was that they wanted digital and analog welders, because if you can learn how to weld on analog, then you can end up utilizing the other. And they said you don't know which environment you're going into. So the part of the purchase that this board made when we made the equipment was for both. Eventually, right now, you know, the amount of work that the facilities department is doing is copious. There's as you know, huge HVAC pieces that have to be taken up, but eventually we're going to end up getting to the point to be able to help modify the room to be able to expand it. And we have the equipment really ready to make it, like Mr. Thompson said, you know, few in the nation, like what we have.
So this is kind of a flow chart that I came up with to try to maximize our potential for candidates to get to the top, obviously their senior level, some of the apprenticeship options. Many of the beginning classes are going to be the same, but what this allows for, because of the apprenticeship, there is an age restriction. And before you can go out into the workforce and things like that. So they really want you to be a senior in high school. Some of the juniors can get away with it with their age, depending on where they're at. But this is going to allow us to, start with a large number in either the freshman or sophomore class, and they can kind of go back and forth either way on those two classes. But it's going to give them the base knowledge to be able to start to decide, okay, well, I really like the machining aspect. I'm going to stay with CNC. Well, you know what, my buddy, my dad wants me to be a welder, or I know somebody who's a welder. I've always wanted to be a welder. But it just gives them that background knowledge to where it sets them up for success instead of hopefully, not just walking in and maybe being a little bit behind. So this pathway will maximize our numbers, getting them to the top and in the right spot during their high school career. So you can kind of see that we did an electrical plumbing one pathway that we're hoping to add in the future along with the welding and CNC apprenticeships. So, and then we have the engineering over there on the green. So but that will kind of give you guys a visual on the pathways.
So thank you. So we've been busy and we're continuing to make ourselves busy and even busier. So we are enhancing things in other ways. So the Grow Your Own Education pathway, we've had a good working partnership with Junior Achievement. I've been working with them to get where they're going to provide. So we're in year 1 of Grow Your Own, right? Actually, year 2 comes up and they're going to start actually teaching courses at this point, a little bit, just like if you've ever known about how teachers go through it. You do a little sabbatical and you teach a little, and then you do more of a full student teacher experience. Junior Achievement's really excited to do this. They will, and so our instructors, they will train our students on how to deliver junior achievement, that they can go out to our elementaries and they can deliver because of the instruction. So you already have this kind of guaranteed and viable micro curriculum, and then we can expand and make it bigger so that students can learn curriculum development with curriculum delivery and with the support of junior achievement. So we're really excited. CCP is that college career pathway endorsement that I talked about earlier. We're going to be adding that. And like Susan and I had talked before, the grant professional development is huge too. Cybersecurity and networking. We've been working with our high school administration. Tom Ryerson, Craig Reed has been a part of this project too. We are looking at adding a cybersecurity and networking. The first start to that is the curriculum. We've spent a copious amount of time being able to see what's the best delivery for this. And after weighing everything, Project Lead the Way ends up having a 4-year sequence that we felt was going to end up being the best for an industry standard. And we currently have a grant written and applied for to be able to provide the full 4-year sequence for Project Lead the Way. And I don't want to jinx us, but I feel very confident about that grant as well. Eventually, that's something we can apply to for the college career pathway endorsement. And the neat part about this, not everything has to lead to a Department of Labor apprenticeship. Not everything has to lead to something else. They can lead to, I said, near more ready. They can lead to near test certification ready. One of the industry standards is A+ certification testing. And we found a really cool workaround with this because we didn't have the capacity to provide the 4-year sequence, while at the same time, we didn't necessarily have the capacity to do just a test prep certification prep course at the same. So we do have Lights On for Learning, which is an after-school program for our high school. And we can do the A+ certification testing prep for those students who are interested as part of that enrichment piece, which is what the Lights On for Learning is for. So
We're gonna be looking at how we can end up having, if you have a student who is in cyber security and networking, eventually, I'm talking way down the road, so you gotta get the grant. We have a 4-year sequence up, that are looking at how we can provide A+ certification testing, test prep for you, and even see if we can end up providing the test itself. And you can see on the right there, I put just a small snapshot of jobs that use A+. It's very significant, and Craig Reed, who has A+ certification, would it be the first time that's telling you it's not easy. But our goal is to get there. So I feel like I've gone on too long, but thank you for your time. Like I said at the beginning, we're excited. Any questions? Yes.
2 comments. You go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead. My question just goes back even closer to the beginning. Well, first of all this is just wonderful, and it's exciting to see these pathways that our students are on, and I know it's talking to students and peers. Wonderful. The fellow, in terms of when and where is sort of those conversations and the use of that taking place within like the school day, and within, how are we building that in terms of students exploring those pathways, and what integrating AS into their daily schools?
Yeah, the middle schools was easier because we have those exploratory classes, some of our computers, science classes and everything like that. Sean McKee at Wilson has been huge into it as well. So we've been able to build it in that way. I think there's 4 main lessons that middle school students go to, but depending on time, it expands out to 6. So we've been able to embed it in a course that way. For the high school, it's far trickier, but I'll let you talk to that.
It is. Right now, we have a tier 1 plan for implementation in some of our SEL Wednesday time periods. It's one of those elements that are built into some of those social emotional learning pieces, because those are some of the basically the counseling criteria for counseling high school students. And then we also have some courses where it fits in kind of nicely. So we've got health at the sophomore level where it fits in nicely. And then of course our consumer education course, it's currently at the junior year. So it's a little later in the process than we'd prefer, but it does help to get them prepared in some of those other pieces for like job exploration and interviewing and those kinds of skills as well.
I have one question and then a comment. So this is the pie in the sky. What, if you guys could have anything, what is the dream? What would you want to really make this take off? What is the big thing?
For the whole pathway piece?
Like with the CNC and the welding, what is, if you guys could tomorrow pick something that would really make this program explode, what would it be?
I got something.
So why? You tell yours first. Yeah.
Okay. And I applied for a grant for it and it fell through, but the idea is that I want to have a pre-apprenticeship building trades program. I envision a classroom where you would walk in. You can get OSHA certification through there, part of the junior achievement again, and I even talk to them so that some of the soft skill things. We had even met with Jerry Lack and some of the other local unions to be able to end up saying like, your apprenticeship programs, your curriculum, your resources, we're not trying to compete with that. We can get a pre-program so they're hitting the ground running into your program. That would be amazing. So I picture a room where you have kind of a modular classroom in the middle of it. And I would like to see electrical along one wall, plumbing, carpentry, and then even another room off the side where you can pull all of it together and do HVAC. But then the walls, because I hope I'm not going to get hung for this, but I'll be honest with you. The old building trade is not about building a whole home. I've never seen it sustainable in the district yet. I could be wrong, but I just haven't seen it in my time. But I'd like for people to be able to go in. Imagine the walls modular. This is electrical that you can put in a junction box. You can put it together with the help of people like that, and then you can partner with the unions, and then be able to have it such like, all right, ready to flip the switch? Does it work? For plumbing side is water go, so they can get tool identification, safety, all those things that our local unions need to be successful in an apprenticeship can end up like Moline kids they're the ones. They can up and go. I also think it would be really neat is that once you get past those, if you have an advanced capstone course, I think it would be neat to continue a partnership with those unions, but also doing a corporate partnership. And perhaps there's something like Tri-City or someone like that who would want to end up working to, we need this little piece, manufactured or these things done so that they can do the construction here. And then our students make a connection towards an apprenticeship program. Our students also make a connection towards employers, and they're getting real world experiences too. So yes, pie in the sky.
Yeah, just one.
I went high.
Okay, I would say ditto to that. That'd be great. And we've talked a lot about that, but I think if you could make anything happen, pie in the sky, anything. We could definitely use the ability for college, like 2-year program, credentialing for staff and trades credentialing for staff and public school credentialing for staff to all match. So you could hire one person to do all of those things. Because to find someone that's ISB qualified to teach high school, but also dual credit qualified to meet the dual credit need at a community college is impossible. And then you have people in the trades who are certified through their trade to be like train the trainer models, but they aren't qualified for either of the other things.
Right.
Even though they're probably the pinnacle of qualification. So none of it talks together very well, which makes employing qualified staff to do any of this probably the biggest hurdle we come across. And then the second one is money to fund it all.
I guess the comment I want to make is that this board, since I've been on it, day one, has been all about improving our career path. And so it makes me really happy to see where we're at and where we're going. And my other question is, so much of this, like the welding, the CNC, you might as well be speaking a different language to me. So are you guys open to visitors to come and see the kids, what they're doing? Because
That's already, yeah, it's fantastic. And I came from that background of being a machinist, and I actually learned in the old machine tech room how to do a job that I did for a decade. And going in there and seeing the way they've taken that and advanced it to what it is now. You know, a lot of times what you see with the machines that they have there is somebody has that job, and what they do is they walk in and they go, and it runs through and it makes something, and they pull it out, they put another thing in, hit a button. They're teaching them how to be the guys that tell the machine what to do. Because going in and pushing a button, you can make a living, and it's what it is. But if you're the guy who's like, I'm gonna program this, you can make a good living. And so to see that and then see the idea to keep pushing further and further and introducing more things that make you very employable is incredible. I mean,
sorry.
I lamented for a long time the fact that, you know, we lost a lot of that years ago. And to see it all coming back and, you know, recognizing what it did for me, I think is great. And I'm very happy with it.
We're super proud and super excited, and
Please come anytime.
I would love to see this because it's hard for me to imagine.
I just one more. So just as you're talking about this, though, just wondering about, I guess, the demographics in some of these programs. I listened to this NPR thing about a year ago about women in plumbing and how they were trying to recruit a ton more to fill needs and stuff. And so just wondering about what we're seeing in terms of our student demographics in these pathways, particularly the engineering and the.
So currently in the CNC apprenticeship, we have Emma Frazier, who's working at MA4, and she's doing very well there. She was actually kind of, I guess I would say, nervous about maybe even, I think it's more of a mother who's nervous, but nervous about putting her out into the workforce, but she went out there and she's done great. We're trying to get more. We have, the good news about the pathways is we have probably more girls in wood tech than anything. I think they're maybe a little bit nervous of the metals aspect of it. But once they, with this pathway, once they begin that sequence with Woods maybe being freshman year, they'll feel a little bit more comfortable, maybe take that next step. And then, but with CNC machining and the programming aspect of it, they seem to grasp it great. Now, we also have a few girls in welding right now that are looking to jump into that apprenticeship next year. So, and I want to say we have maybe 5, which is going to be a pretty high number, I would say, for the area.
And in engineering, it's probably half girls.
Yeah, oh, yeah, engineering.
Yeah.
And then the grant I had mentioned this fall, it was for $500,000 and it was help that pre-apprenticeship program that I'm talking about. And we wrote a lot into that about how we can do recruitment to end up, increasing numbers and what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Blacker College has a pre-apprenticeship program for highway construction trade.
Yes, they do. See how we. Yep, and we've had conversations with them too. They've been really good to work with. Their law enforcement too, has been super excited to help start to have these conversations. too, with us when Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you for the support of these programs.
Right, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Everybody take a break? Yeah. Oh, I didn't notice it.
I'm sorry, Board of Education meeting in the Coolidge Center Monday, January 10th, 2020, calling it to order 7:09. Can I have a roll call, please?
Audrey Adamson,
Here.
Justin Anderson,
Present.
Chet DeSmet,
Here.
Kate Schaefer,
Here.
Maria S. Trigueros,
Here.
Andrew Wayert,
Here.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Here. All right. Pledge allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go on to our approval of the minutes, all of you have this by your feet, and we will have them from now on. I'm just going to, and we're going to read through the board norms every time. Board members do not make decisions as individuals. Please direct all questions to Dr. Savage as she answers directly to the board. When sending a question or concern to Dr. Savage, please CC the board president so they are aware of the concern as well. Do not reply all to email and understand the role of communicating with the public. Rather than trying to provide solutions for someone who comes to the board with concerns, board members should provide a pathway to find a solution. Follow the chain of command. We as a board need to direct those appropriate transfer to receive the right answer the first time. Both respectful over one another during the subject at hand, particularly during closed session. These are all the norms that we came up with at the last meeting. So, number 3, the approval of minutes. A, minutes of the open session of the regular board of education, meeting, December 13th, 2021, and B, minutes of the closed session of the regular board meeting of education of December 13th, 2021. Do I have a motion, please?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No comment or participation?
Nope.
No, okay. All right, next we are on to the consent agenda. I recommend a motion to the Board of Education approve the actions contained in the consent agenda as presented. Roll call, please.
Justin,
Sorry, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Now can I have a roll call, please?
okay. Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria S. Trigueros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Aye. Okay. So now we go on to the approval of the resolution for the 2021 tax abatements. That the Board of Education approve the resolution abating all of the property taxes heretofore levied for the year 2021 to pay debt service on general obligation school bonds, alternative revenue source series 2018 of the Community Unit School District number 40, Rock Island County, Illinois. I have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All right, have a roll call.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria S. Trigueros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. 7 is approval of a special education teacher. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve 1 full-time special education teacher to be shared by Bicentennial Elementary and St. Catholic School. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria S. Trigueros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 8 is approval of the substitute teacher incentive. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the substitute teacher incentive for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Maria S. Trigueros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Chet DeSmet.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Number 9 is the approval of compensation structure for paraprofessionals with a substitute license. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the paraprofessional hourly wage or the daily substitution rate for those employees willing to substitute teach on an emergency basis. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Andrew Wayers.
Aye.
Audrey Adamson.
Aye.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Chet DeSmet.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer.
Aye.
Maria S. Trigueros.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Aye. All right, before we move on, please be aware that we have to do each one of these policies individually. So bear with me. You all have the way you feel that way. Okay, here we go. Number 10, the first reading of the revised Board of Education policies for Section 4 operational services. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading revised Board of Education policies, operational services sections 480, accounting and audits, 4110, transportation, 4120, food services, and 4150, facility management and building programs.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
Right, do I have a motion? Second.
Do I need a motion?
We have to do a motion because that's a roll call.
I think you say that.
I think that's what it is.
Oh, you're saying.
Yeah, I think that, isn't that saying?
It's not a roll call, so you still need a first, yeah.
All right, so we don't have to vote or anything.
You do need to vote.
Yeah.
So you need, what I would do is I would, first, then you waive the second reading and then that's your.
Okay.
Can I have a motion, please? Second, okay. And now a roll call? Roll call, please.
Audrey Adamson.
Aye.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Chet DeSmet.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer.
Aye.
Maria S. Trigueros.
Aye.
Andrew Wayers.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Aye. Okay, number 11. The first reading of revised Board of Education policy 460, purchases and contracts. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept for first reading revised Board of Education policies for operational service section 460, purchasing contracts. Do we move it first?
So I'd like to waive the second reading and allow this reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Second.
There we go.
Roll call, please.
This is so hard.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Chet DeSmet.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer.
Aye.
Maria S. Trigueros.
Aye.
Andrew Wayers.
Aye.
Audrey Adamson.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Mhm.
You're doing good.
Okay, number 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the discussion,
Oh.
but it's okay.
We're done. We're done.
Okay, all right, number 12. The first reading of the revised Board of Education policy 4160, the environmental quality of buildings and grounds. The recommended motion, is the Board of Education accept for the first reading revised Board of Education policies for operational services section 1460, environmental quality of buildings and grounds.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Second. Would anyone like to discuss this policy? No? Can we have a roll call, please?
Chet DeSmet.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer.
Aye.
Maria S. Trigueros.
Aye.
Andrew Wayers.
Aye.
Audrey Adamson.
Aye.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Aye. Number 13, the first reading of the new Board of Education policy 4165, awareness and prevention of child sexual abuse and grooming behavior. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept for the first reading revised Board of Education policies for operational services, sections 4165, awareness and prevention of child sexual abuse and grooming behaviors.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call please.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 14. First reading of the revised Board of Educational Policy 4170, safety. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading revised Board of Education Policy for operational services, sections 410, safety.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 15, the first reading of the revised Board of Education Policy 4175, convicted child sex offender screening notification. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading of the revised Board of Education Policy for operational service section 4175, convicted child sex offender screening notifications.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Okay, 16. The first reading of the just read the motion. Can I read just a motion? Awesome. The Board of Education, except for the first reading, the revised Board of Education Policies 5110, equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment, 520 workplace. I read all day. Harassment prohibited, hiring process and criteria, family and medical leave as presented. I would like to waive the second reading and allow this reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. None, roll call, please.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 17, the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading, the revised Board of Education Policy for section 550, drug and alcohol-free workplace, e-cigarette, tobacco, and cannabis prohibition as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading to allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second.
So moved. Second. Discussion? None? Okay, roll call.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 18. Recommending motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading, the revised Board of Education Policy section 590, abuse and neglected child reporting as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow this reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
Moved.
Second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 19. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading of the revised Board of Education Policy for section 5100, staff development program as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 20, the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading, the revised Board of Education Policy for section 5120, employee ethics, conduct, and conflict of interest as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Wayert,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 21, the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept for first reading the revised Board of Education policy for section 5125, personal technology and social media usage and conduct as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading, allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Discussion, roll call please.
Andrew Ware,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet, Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 22, the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the first reading the revised Board of Education policy, section 5150, personnel records as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow this reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Ware,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 23, the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept for first reading the revised Board of Education policy for section 520, terms and conditions of employment and dismissal as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading and allow this reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
So moved.
Discussion, roll call please.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Ware,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Number 24, the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept for first reading the revised Board of Education policy for section 5250 leave of absence as presented.
Like to waive the second reading and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second reading.
All right, number 25.
Nope.
No.
So moved.
Second. I know. Discussion?
I didn't get either of the first and second,
You need a first and a second for the amended motion.
I did first.
so Andy and Maria.
Discussion, no, roll call.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer, Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Ware,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye. Now, number 25. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept for the first reading the revised Board of Education policy for section 560, vacation, holidays, and leaves as presented.
I would like to waive the second reading to, and allow the first reading to stand for both the first and second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call please.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Ware,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson,
Aye.
Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Okay, number 26, the approval of change order number 1, the Moline High School A wing abatement. Aspire. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the change order for the Moline High School A wing abatement Aspire to the MO Environmental Company, Peoria, Illinois, for an increased amount of $2,400 for a total of $27,000 once yearly. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion. Hey,
This is an unusual, it's not unusual, but the process of taking the hard lids down in the A wing, we're gonna see another bid come out. Because we estimated that there was no asbestos under the hard lids because of the gym that the locker rooms that we did on the west side of the gym a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, the east side, after you tore all the hard lids, the hard ceilings down, there was asbestos in all of it. So we now have to bid that because of the state law only requires change orders to go up to 10%. So this one allowed us to get one little area done, but we're gonna see a whole new bid go out. And in 2 board meetings, I'll come back with an end result for the rest of the project. So this is, the ultimate project's gonna probably be twice as expensive as originally thought. So this is just to allow us to go forward on one half of it, and then we'll come back for the other.
other discussion? Is the motion correct? All right, have a roll call, please.
Maria Estragaros,
Aye.
Andrew Ware,
Aye.
Audrey Adamson,
Aye.
Justin Anderson, Chet DeSmet,
Aye.
Kate Schaefer,
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith,
Aye.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to echo Kristen and Ms. Sanders' comment about the time during the day, nights and weekends that she has spent on COVID. She has taken the lead for all the student counts, and Mr. Dete has taken the lead for all the staff counts. And I can tell you it has become nearly a 24/7 endeavor. I know this because I get looped into their conversation, so I want to thank them for their efforts in tracking COVID across our district in conjunction with our head nurse, Dawn Carnahan. It has really taken over their roles, and I am appreciative. End of first semester. It is hard to believe that the end of first semester is upon us. While many believe last year was the hardest year ever for educators, this year has been no less difficult. We're grateful to have gotten to this point and want to express sincere thanks to all of the teachers, staff, and administrators for pushing on in these difficult times. The second semester begins next Tuesday, January 18th, after the Monday Martin Luther King holiday. COVID update, as I was just mentioning, we continue to be challenged by ongoing cases of the pandemic. Cases are up and are being closely monitored on a daily basis. We have the option for an adaptive pause of a classroom, and we are using them, or a school should the need arise. We will continue to do all that we can to keep the district open and manage the outbreaks at the school level as much as possible. While district staff is now close to 90% vaccinated, we are still seeing breakthrough cases from our adult staff, our adults. These are causing staffing issues in nearly all of our schools. I'm grateful for the administrators, teachers, and staff for getting creative and thinking outside the box to staff our classrooms and schools. Everyone is stepping up, and I cannot express enough appreciation from the district for all of those efforts. We are also awaiting the green light from the Illinois Department of Education so public school districts can implement the reduction in quarantine days as put forth by the CDC. Being able to do so where and when appropriate will significantly help our ability to keep our schools staffed and open. Stay tuned for that information. 5 Essentials Survey. Tomorrow, the State Department of Education will launch the annual 5 Essentials Survey for all districts. All teachers, all parents, and students in grades 4 through 12 will be invited to complete the assessment. The 5 Essentials Survey identifies 5 indicators that lead to improved outcomes for all students, which are effective leaders, collaborative teachers, involved families, and supportive environments and ambitious instruction. Results will be embedded into our Illinois School Report Card, and the window for the assessment opens tomorrow and ends on March 11th. Student Intake Center. Each year, this is the second year for our Student Intake Center at Allendale. And since the Intake Center opened up for this school year on September 14th, we have enrolled over 160 new students coming from nearly every state in the nation. Jackie Zamora does an excellent job in the Intake Center, and she enrolls students every single day. It's quite amazing. We're grateful for this one-stop shop model for families. It's proven to have great customer service and alleviates the time at the building level that the principals and administrative assistants were taking. And lastly, I wanted to remind us of our district mission. As a follow-up to the Board of Education norms that were recently set, I wanted to recite our district mission statement. It is located on our district website and good to review as we recenter for the start of second semester. The mission of Moline-Co Valley School District, in partnership with our communities, is to educate individuals by providing superior student-centered educational experiences, which will prepare them to become contributing and productive citizens, responsive to the changing local and global needs. And I think our presentations tonight really emulate that mission. And thank you, that is all I have for tonight.
Here we go. Tragically, over the Christmas break, we lost 2 dedicated teachers from the Moline School District. We lost Lisa Tolson and Yara Glendower. This was tragic. These were both people who've been dedicated to our staff and our community. I just want to say as the Board of Education that we give our sympathy to the families, and we are deeply appreciative of the work that they did for us and the time they gave us. All right, So it's time to close the meeting. Do I have a motion, please? Second, all in favor? Aye.